or Pennsylvania. The argument that, we got to kill the deer because they're hurting regeneration or destroying regeneration. Once you understand that's what deer do, they impact regeneration, that whole argument becomes an economic argument, is what it becomes. It's not a scientific argument, it's an economic argument. And what I was saying when I got here, I was chatting with Merlin Benner, and I was saying the problem in Pennsylvania is we've let forestry run footloose and fancy free. Forestry is not responsible to anybody. Forestry doesn't sit at the table and compromise or discuss with wildlife biologists, what are we going to do out there? What do we want these woods to look like? What percentages do we want to grow of what species? All those species, all the species in the forest are important as wildlife food is what they are. We have even made matters worse. Since 1955, we have been practicing a strategy called stand improvement cuts. And it goes on till today, and sometimes we use the chainsaw, and sometimes we use roundout. But what we do and what we have done is we have gone into stands of timber where soils are good, where we're getting good growth on our trees, and we go in and we strategically cut out any tree that will not be available or there's no commercial desire for at some time in the future. We sterilize the stands is what we do. We have converted, in the last 50 years, we have converted Pennsylvania to a tree farm, to a hardwood monoculture, that the only trees left out there are trees that you could sell. But, deer eat all trees, all wildlife, munches on all species, so to speak. And of course, if you're going to do this, if this is your forestry practice, to remove 22 species, so only 5 species that can be sold or left, of course the deer are going to munch on whatever is indeed left. The deer will impact. And I like to use the old analogy that we've created a situation that, deer are a round peg, which we are now trying to put into a square hole. Between the combination of past forestry practices and acid deposition and stand improvement cuts and so forth, we have methodically, maybe intentionally, maybe not intentionally, but with each passing year, each passing decade, the carrying capacity of our woods continues to decline. And I don't think we're very far away from looking at a situation, and we might be there now, we have 0 deer carrying capacity. 0. That it is all caught up with us. Now, the number that's being used most frequently is 5. We got to get the deer down to 5 deer per square mile and maybe keep them there for 30, 40, 50 years until these woods bounce back. I don't know how you're going to maintain the hunting industry, how you're going to hold interest in hunting if the goal is 5 deer per square mile. You only have, 30,000 square miles of forest in Pennsylvania. You're talking about a standing herd before anybody picks up a gun. You're talking about 150,000 deer is what we have available to harvest, or that's the total size of the herd. How could you possibly maintain hunting as an economic, as a social, as a traditional, as a recreational industry if your goal is 150,000 deer statewide? It just doesn't jive. It is just not reasonable. It is not practical, and that's the point we are. And that really is an outgrowth of this forest certification stuff. These people that we brought in from scientific certification systems and this whole concept of sustainable forestry and so forth, those people and that organization is asking for 5 deer per square mile. I mean, they want numbers, and they've done the same thing to Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota people. They want the deer numbers down. Well, deer hunting and the concept of hunting is based on the principle of compensatory losses. You go back 100 years, we had very low densities of wildlife. And our job over the last 100 years was to get wildlife numbers back up to where they were or close to where they were. And the goal was abundance, to ensure the perpetuation of individual species and all species. Our goal was to get numbers back up, get the elk numbers up, the antelope, the mule deer, the whitetail, and get them up. But we all knew, and so did the scientists knew, that in the process of getting these numbers up, life is cruel. The life cycle will go on. And every year, even though your herd may be in a growing mode, every year the effects of winter the effects of pockets of overpopulation is going to take its toll, and we are going to lose animals. Even in the process of, we're going to have natural mortality, even in the process of building populations. So the concept of compensatory losses really was originated, and it's the impetus for hunting. We were assigned or allowed to take a percentage of these herds, whatever the species weight may be. We were permitted to harvest and cull a percentage of the herds to compensate for what was going to be lost over the winter anyway. So that we didn't hurt the source. We always left a core herd. There were always some animals available, but we were able to take this small percentage and compensate for winter losses. We're way beyond that now. We're beyond. When you're talking about 5 deer per square mile, there is no justification for hunting them any longer. There's no compensatory losses. That all goes out. There is no abundance. There is no numbers above what the land could hold and so forth. You're talking about a bare bones, surviving population. That if we're down to 5 deer per square mile, we better hope that the coyotes don't get them, or we don't have a bad winter, or we don't shoot them, or a tree doesn't fall on them. Because if those 5 are gone, there's none. We're right back where we were in 1890. We're at zero. We're at zero. That's where we are. They'll be gone. So that's why this is critical. This whole argument of where we are, where we want to go, and so forth is critical, because this is the North Central is often called the last bastion for our industry, so to speak. It is a $5 billion industry, and someone said to me earlier in the evening, it's the Alaska of Pennsylvania, so to speak. This is our area. We know there's going to be changes all to the south and so forth, and there's going to be urban sprawl, no matter how hard we try to fight it off. But this North Central is the place that for the next 100 years, we should be able to practice the recreational sport of sport hunting. It really should be. We have a problem. If you try to do that with North Central Pennsylvania, you run headlong into the forestry industry. They got different plans for North Central Pennsylvania, and deer hunting is not one of them. So that's really where we are. I talked for an hour. I'll take any questions that you want. I did an overlay of where we are. I encourage you. I truly encourage you to get involved with the Unified Sportsmen of Pennsylvania. They're the only group that is really holding DCNR and the Game Commission, holding their feet to the fire, asking, let's see the numbers. Liars can figure, but figures don't lie. And desperate people do desperate things. That is for sure. But we're at the point now that the sporting community is being stonewalled by the agencies. There are other agendas afoot. No one wants to talk. No one wants to give out any numbers, any rhymes or reasons to why things are done. We have reached the point, even in the sporting community, that lawsuit has become the weapon of choice. And it may be the only way to get things resolved in the future, because we're not meeting with much cooperation. We're not all sitting around the table with the agencies trying to discuss our future. We're pretty much, they're pretty much thumbing their nose to us and telling us they're going to do what they want to do, whether we like it or not. And I think that we have a lot to defend in our tradition, our great traditions of hunting, fishing, trapping, and shooting. And I think there's a lot more.